Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening, Sabir. Good evening. We'll be waiting 2-3 minutes and then we'll begin, as always. What are you doing here, Sabir? Swani, I'm better, more or less 100%. See, if you've emailed me, Yashwant, though it is already there in your dashboard, the simple point is if you've emailed me, I am now better, I will figure it out. I've been forwarding emails of people. I will get it figured out. For example, Aniket got a call. I'm going to go through 100 plus emails. I'll forward it to the team. Don't worry. It should be in the recorded video. It should be attached to the. It actually should be attached to the in the dashboard. It should be there. If it isn't, that's a separate issue altogether. Good evening. Good evening. Waiting for half of the people. We started Nagara style yesterday. We have to take that conversation forward. Temple architecture. And we have to discuss Nagara style regional variations and what we call as variations in Nagara rather. Okay. Aarti, I'm not sure if the video gets downloaded or not. Yes, Chandranath. Yes. Viharas can also be there without Chaityas. Pottery, I will tell you, Anurag, don't run forward. I will tell you pottery. It's a very 5-minute discussion I will have with you separately. Don't worry about that. Ochre colored NBPW, PGW, I will tell you that, don't worry. Sakshi, how I make notes in class, you have to make your own notes. That is your recommendation. Condensation of data. Is there a class on Makar Sankranti? Sure, festivals. But a whole class on Makar Sankranti makes no sense. Nitin Singhania for revision, yes. Which chapter studied, I will tell you when the time will come, not right now. Buddhist mudras don't come in UPSC. We wait 1 more minute and then we start. We start at 5:08. Anurag, Gandhara school is of what? Mahachaitya means big Chaitya, very important Chaitya. Gulam, which state PCS was this? Gujarat. Okay, very good, perfect. Anurag, I'm waiting for a reply. Gandhara, Mathura, Amravati are of what? Type of what? If it is convenient for you, then give a break from 5:45 to 7:20. Okay. Something specific? Are we doing schools of sculpture, not even art? Are we doing schools of sculpture? So Gulam, I hope that you're able to score good in that Gujarat PCS. When you will take modern India? I don't know the difference between art and sculpture. But you know the difference between architecture and sculpture? No. Nagar Shaili and Nagara style. Yes, same thing. One you're looking in Hindi. Why? Obviously, they're the same thing. Okay, I get it, Gula. Okay. So we start our discussion. Yesterday we discussed the Nagara style, which is North Indian style, and within the North Indian style, which is basically Nagara style, we were able to identify 12 distinct features, wherein we saw Darbgriya, the Shikhar, Amlaka, Kalash, Ardhamandap, Mandap, Pitha, and thereafter clusterization, no tank, no water tank, no boundary wall, no entry gate, and Panchayatan, with the tallest having the god in it, and last but not the least, the imagery. So we discussed 12 different points related to Nagara style. That is the last thing we discussed yesterday. Now today our discussion changes because, as I told you, Nagara style does not be the same throughout India, meaning it changes as per different combinations, and more than that, you have different ideas related to Nagara. What do I mean by that? Basically, see, Nagara has two subdivisions. one is one is the concept related to according to Shikhar, and the other one is according to region. And Nagara thereafter, in this, can be divided into three: Latina, which is also called Rekhadul, you have Famsana, and you have Walabi. And according to a region, we divide it into three, which is Odisha, the concept of Khajuraho, and Solanki. So basically, there can be multiple combinations in Nagara because they are not mutually exclusive to each other. So in Odisha, you can have any three. In Khajuraho, you can have any three. In Solanki, you can have any three. So these three schools can further have subdivisions based on Shikhar. So very simply, there are multiple combinations, close to 27 to 28 combinations, in which you can find the Nagara style. Now, Nagara core style 12 basic features are there, which we discussed yesterday itself, which is 12 basic features. Now we need to understand, over and above them, how do you perceive and how do you understand the different features other than? Why are they called schools? So these are called regional schools, and these are called Shikhar types. Now first let's discuss the Shikhar combination. So when we talk about Shikhra and Nagara variation, you have three types. One is called Latina or Rekha Prasada or Rekha Dyul. And the importance of Latina is that when you look at the Shikhar, the Shikhar mostly initially the walls of the Shikhar are parallel to each other, but they quickly meet at the top. They quickly meet at the top. This is called an inward sloping Shikhar. And to be very clear, it is on the perspective what you want to call it. For example, it is both concave and convex at the same point of time. If you look at from the outer surface, it is a convex shape itself. But if you look at the inside, it is concave, but we go with convex. Now, very simply, Rekha Prasada, these are very tall and meet very sharply at the top and curvilinear or convex in shape. Is it hollow or not? That is not given. It could be hollow, it could not be hollow. That is based on the temple you are in. No standard rules. So this is called Latina. Just to show you a Latina, this is a Latina. You can see Latina. Square base along with those walls curve or slope inward at that point, and they call Latina, Rekha Prasada or Rekha Dyul. And basically they are curvilinear, means they are meeting quite quickly on the top. So they are parallel to each other at one point of time, and they will very quickly meet at the top. So this is the first one, which is Rekha Prasada, Rekha Dyul or Latina. Rekha Dyul is though a word used mostly in Odisha, So as of right now, I'll remove this term from you and I'll bring this back, this word, so as to explain the story related to Odisha. Tall meet very sharply at the top. Are we clear? It must be hollow so that we can call something convex and concave. So my hand is hollow, Musharraf, when I do this, this and this. A convex, concave, I can call anything. I can say that this mouse is concave, but it has to be hollow or not does not really matter. It is concave also. It is either convex. Don't become scientists. Simple point is by looking at it when it is bulging inwards, then it has to be convex if we are looking at this surface. But the problem is I don't know how much science you remember to know what is convex and concave. So this is convex because it is outward. So first is Latina. Anybody has issue in Latina? Anybody has issue in Latina? No, sir. Clear, sir. Okay. Very good. Now, height is not given. It is different to different things. Now, the second type, is called Famsana. Now, Famsana is it is shorter than Latina and stepped pyramidal type, broader and concave slope. These types can be asked in exam. That is why we are doing it. I don't teach anything unnecessary. Now, basically, when you look at a Famsana, it's much broader base. It's a broader base. And if you try to look at its slope, it is concave. So if one is inward sloping, this is outward sloping. This is inward sloping. And if you look at a Famsana, you will realize broader and shorter than Latina. Several slabs are gently placed to make it like a pyramidal structure, and it does not turn inward but outward or a straight line in that regard. Either it is a straight line or it is a outward slope in that sense. And therefore, Latina and Famsana are exactly opposite to each other. If this is convex, this is concave, this is a square base, smaller base, here it is broader base and concave in shape. Does it make sense? Latina and Famsana, first and second type. In Latina, base always square, not specifically, but generally. Are we clear? Okay. Now the third type is called Vallabhi. It's called Vallabhi style. And in Vallabhi style, what we see, it's called a vaulted rectangular base shikhar. Basically, if you have the base as a proper rectangle, when you try to make a roof over this, it will look something like this. Now, this is basically called a vaulted chamber. Base here, Garbhagriha. Shikhar is always on the Garbhagriha, so it has to be Garbhagriha. Garbhagriha is Shikhar is only on the Garbhagriha. So obviously. So very simply, in a 3D render, it looks like this. You see this. You see. This is called a vaulted chamber. And this is quite common in the Gujarat sector. That is why it's called Vallabhi. But the simple point is, when you have a rectangular base, this is related to Vallabhi rulers or Chalukyas, no, region Vallabhi. The simple point is, now we have three basic variations in the shikhars. One is called Latina, the other one is called Famsana, and thereafter you have the Vallabhi. One is curvilinear. Thereafter you have this is inward sloping, this is outward sloping, square, base, broad base, and the last is which is vaulted chamber. And in Nagara, you can have any of these three. Are we clear about these three? Because then we talk about once draw the last. It's very easy. Make a Triangle like this. Simple. Right. As it is Nagara will be cluster of shikhars of same model hybrid. Again, I don't know, Yashwant, what you mean by that. Air circulation in vaulted chamber. No, because it is going to be a solid structure. Are we clear about the three things I've told you? Will you be able to see a shikhar and identify Latina, Famsana, and Valabi? Yes. In images of PPT, confuse between Famsana and Valabi. So you are not able to understand this one. You are confused between this and this. What is there to get confused for? Main difference in the base and roof only? No. In the structure. In Nagara style, we have cluster of shikhars of same model or hybrid shikhars of Panchayatan. Again, overcomplicated question. If it's a Latina, all will be Latina. If it's a Famsana, all will be Famsana. If it's a vaulted one, all will be vaulted. There's no hybrid and all. Whatever the word you're using, you don't know what hybrid actually means. That would then make it Vesara, not Nagara. So, simple point, whatever is going to be the original design is going to be followed in all. It can't be in the same temple you have Latina, Famsa, and Valabi together. It could be, but that would be an exception. Now, if we are clear about this, I would like to talk about the second type of differentiation. Vaulted chamber means. Hindi लिख दो कोई इसकी please. Vaulted chamber means chamber which is vaulted chamber. Chamber is a chamber. We have done this. What is the difference between Khajuraho and Solanki school? Amit पढ़ा दिया मैंने. I've done it. Have I taught it, Amit? Have I taught it? Why is there difference in designing? People wanted to do it, they did it. Architects have their own ideas. No, sir, I thought you moved that slide. No, sir. ज़्यादा सोचा मत करो. Whatever I'm telling you, do that. When you push too much, it becomes problematic. Okay. I have to teach you that. Now, I'm presuming in Famsana always like step middle. No. That is the Sun Temple Kona. That's only a simple example. It is the slope which can tell you by looking at it. So there's no set pattern. It could be pyramidal. It could be in different way altogether. Simple point is curvilinearity inward or outward will be very clear when you look at it. See, in the examination, they will not ask you to identify. In the examination, they will not even ask you to do anything. Just have to write these basic points which I've written here. One here, and the other one here. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. Now, I believe that the shikhar types are clear. Now I move to what are called regional schools. The other way to divide curvilinear convex, no. Curvilinearity means to have a curve. Concave and convex are two types of curves. Okay. Regional schools would mean that basically when Nagara went to, for example, Odisha, when it was in MP, when it was in Gujarat, which is Solanki, what happened was that they kept the 12 basic features and did 2-3 exceptions. See, Everybody's been to school, I hope. And if you've been to school, the syllabus of each and every school in India under CBSE would be different. Would it be different? No, all of them follow the CBSE board same. But does every school teach the syllabus in the same way? Again, no. Same way, Nagara is there in North India, but there were 3 regions in which they diverged away from the basic syllabus, which is Nagara style, and developed a unique design, but still remained Nagara. Still remained Nagara. So schools mean that they are still part of Nagara only. But if you go to that region, you will see a little bit of a different interpretation of Nagara. Now, this happens, for example, in Odisha, in what is called as Odisha school. It has all features of Nagara, Nagara style features. But there are 3 basic exceptions. The word Shikhara is known as Rekhadyul. It's called Rekhadyul. Terms change. And the word Mandapa is called Jagmohan. It's called Jagmohan. So if you go to Odisha, they will not call the Mandap, they'll call it Jagmohan. And they will not call the Shikhar, they'll call it Rekhadyu. Now, the biggest change in Nagara style Odisha is that some of them have entry gates also, and some of them have boundary walls also. So if you look at Odisha school, for example, the boundary wall are present in Odisha school. So what is happening is that you have, for example, Sun Temple Konark and the Lingaraja Temple. Exterior walls are very lavishly decorated. They have iron girders to support the roof rather than having columns. They have girders. I hope you would have seen what are called girders, gatrapatti, which is that red stone which is used to make the roofs of buildings today. And to keep that red stone intact, there is a small girder there. Iron girder looks like this. Iron girder looks like this, like a railway track. It looks like this, and on it the red stones are kept. That is called gatrapatti houses. That girder is basically used to make the roofs. The word shikhar becomes rekhadyul, and the word mandapa becomes jagmohan. And therefore, the ground plan remains the same. It is having a boundary wall. And you tell me, which is the Latina one? Why it called Odisha school? Let me know. Because when we look at which one is the Latina? Very good. You can see in the same school there are 2 types. One Latina, the other one Famsuna. And this tells you that every school can have both or all 3 in that regard. Please understand this point. It is called Odisha school because Nagara, when it goes to Odisha, it changes. The terminology changes, and therefore the simple point is that it is called Odisha school. So when we talk about Odisha school, the 3 exceptions which make it a school. See, if all 12 features of Nagara were there in Odisha, would we call it a school? Would we call it a school? No, because it was sticking to the main plan. Because it stick to the main plan, but also did a little bit of changes, it is a school because it took the main syllabus and changed it a little bit. Is this temple or school? School, 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 school. Now, the second is called the Khajuraho school, found in MP. Khajuraho school has a very interesting distinction. It is the only school. Sun temple is a temple. It is of the Odisha school. How can you be getting confused about these things? नाम में ही टेम्पल लिखा है. You're saying Konark temple is school. Konark temple is a temple. Here school indicated. Where is it school indicated? You are not getting confused in history. You are getting confused in English. You tell me one thing. It says Odisha school. These two are examples of that school. So that's it. Naitra, I don't know what you mean by here school indicate. I don't know. School means regional variation. Okay. Now, why comes Shikhar Mandap in school structure? I don't know what you mean by that question. Sir, can we say most of features of Shikhara school present in Odisha school? You mean Nagara school? This school means type, yes. Here school also includes university. Yeah. How do I explain this to you now? Subtype means school. ये स्कूल वाला स्कूल नहीं है. Is not a school. That now I get it. Now why you're saying अरे सर टेम्पल को स्कूल कह रहे हैं. मैं समझ गया. Now I get it why you are confused. That why is that people are saying temple school, you are not talking about. Simple. You have to clear UPSC and you are asking me is temple school subtype. Yes, sir, that is a doubt. That should not, that is presumed at my level. It means branch, it means subtype. Yeah, I think I speak okayish English. मैं तोड़ तोड़ के नहीं बोलता हूं. I'm not talking like others also that school subtype Nagara has feature following feature. I'm not talking like that. I think so. It can't be that I am going. And if you want to Hindi में समझाना है तो there's a Byju's IAS Hindi product also. Feel free to be a part of it. Okay. So I am not here to teach in Hindi. Simple point. First thing. And second thing is पता नहीं कहाँ से अमेरिकन आ रखे मेरे क्लास में. चलो okay. I'll go to Khajuraho. I know here also you will now get stuck over something which I will not explain also. It is the only school which follows all the features of the Nagara style. The only exception is the thematic. The theme here is eroticism and is based on the Kama Sutra of Vatasana. Vatasana is a writer of this text. So when we talk about Khajuraho, Khajuraho has all the features. All the features. Most of the pictures which I've shown you is actually Khajuraho. Khajuraho, made by the Chandela rulers, prevalent in the Deccan central part of India. Both interior and exterior very beautifully carved. Vatasana Kama Sutra, eroticism is the basic theme. Made out of sandstone, and the temples have standard mandap, ardha mandap, garbhagriha, north and east facing, higher platform. Jain religion is also there. Panchayatan is also there, and the Kanderia Mahadevi temple and the Lakshmana temple at Khajuraho are example of this. Now you can see that you have raised platform, you have Panchayatan, you have Ardh Mandap, you have Mandap, you have Shikhar, you have clusterization of Shikhar. All features are there. So basically, the only thing which makes Khajuraho a different school is its thematic. The theme of decoration is totally different to any other temple. There is no other temple in India which follows this thematic. So in Nagara, you have Odisha school and you have Khajuraho school. What is Panchayatan? Have to watch yesterday's video. Simple. If I say it in simple words, say central shrine with multiple shrines or multiple garbhagriha is called Panchayatan. If you understand that, sure. Yogita school means sub branch. You are coming with the lag of at least 15 to 20 minutes. Now, we have discussed Odisha. We've discussed Khajuraho. Anybody has any issue here? Because then I discussed Solanki. Amit, do one thing. Go on Google and write what your question is, and you'll get the answer. You'll get the answer. Vatasana. Okay. Can we talk Solanki? Can I talk about Solanki? Everybody has to agree. Sir, we have not done Gandhara Mathura school. Obviously, because they are schools of sculpture. And I am doing architecture. So, yes, not done. What is school, sir? Pata nahi, kahan so rahe ho? I have no idea what you are doing. I have no idea where you are sleeping. Literally have no idea. Literally, I would love to see a video playback of what you are doing right now, because I have no idea what you are doing. Literally. What are you doing? I don't know. I've said school means subtype, school means branch. Still, beautiful. The subject member expert also, the SME, has got irritated by it that they've pushed an public message. School means type of some art. He or she already has a lot of work to do, but koi baat. Now we go to the third one. This is why I tell you that sometimes I feel that I'm teaching Americans. I have no idea itself. What is India? School? What India? What culture? I have no idea. Literally. Now, Amit, what is eroticism is your question. Write exact thing on Google and you'll get your answer. Literally. I'll wait for you also. I'll wait for you. I'll wait. Do it and then tell me. Khajuraho school is located in Odisha. Wow. Khajuraho school is, if Khajuraho would be located in Odisha, Why would it be called Khajuraho school? Then it would be called Odisha school. Where is Khajuraho? MP. MP. Okay. I will look after the class. जो अच्छा लगे आपको. Solanki. Okay. Solanki is popular in the Gujarat sector. It also has basic features of the Nagara style, but its exceptions are quite big. Its exceptions are quite big. No Vinendra. It has water tank, it's called step wells. No, I'm not frustrated, I'm amused. Maja aata. It has water tank, it has boundary wall, and it has entry gate called Torana. Where have we seen this word previously? Toran? Stupas. So this word is basically taken from Buddhism. Now, when we talk about Solanki, prevalent in northwestern sector, Gujarat, mostly devoid of carvings, but the examples we have, for example, the Modera temple, Sun temple, which we'll discuss in the current affairs part also, made by Bhima one, is actually one of the best examples of how step well structures are made. Another important example of this could be Rani Ki Vav, which is made by Bhima one's wife in memory of him. And it is again a very good example of Solanki school. So the Garbhagriha is connected to the mandap from the main entrance also, but from outside also. Decorated archways called torans are there. Step wells, which are called Surya Kunds, are there also because these are sun temples mostly, and made out of the black basaltic rock which comes out of this area. Most of them face the east so as to get the first ray of light on the sun god itself. That is why it's called a sun temple. So before I move to Dravida, I want to do something very simple. Nagara, I have discussed 12 basic features with you. Thereafter, I have discussed two subdivisions. One is based on Shikhar, which is Latina, Famsana, and Valabhi. And I've discussed with you three regional schools: Odisha, Khajuraho, and Solanki. Here it is Jagmohan. Here it is the concept of Jagmohan plus you have Rekhadul and boundary wall. Here it is the theme, and here it is the boundary wall plus entry gate and it may be water tank. So if this is clear, we take a breather, and I want to discuss Dravida then. Done? Okay. So we come back in 5 minutes. I leave you here. Think about them and remember the schools. We'll move forward. After this is moving to South India, which is Dravida. See you at 57. Okay. Now we move to South India. And Dravida style is for South India. But Dravida style emerged out of Pallava style. And basically, there are three stages of development within Pallavas, which in turn becomes Dravida. Now, the first is Pallava style. It's called the Mahendra Varman 1 series. This is the period of rock cut temples, initial stage, when you have mandap. The word mandapas are used for temples. Very simple, straightforward temples. For example, these are called Mahendra Varman 1 rock cut temples. It's a rock, he's made a temple into it. That is basically what is Mahendra Varman doing. Basic rock cut. Rock cut means monolithic structures. Thereafter, when Mahendra Varman is succeeded by Narasimha Varman 1 Mamala or Mahabali, it is basically the high point of rock cut monolithic architecture and here you have Mahabalipuram and the Pancharath as examples. So here you have, this is stage 1, the second stage. Second stage is when you get this, the Pancharath of Mahabalipuram. These Pancharaths named after the different characters of the Mahabharata, Dharamrath, Arjun Rath, Bhim Rath, Rakul Sadev Rath, and Draupadi Rath. They are basically based on this was one whole rock which has been carved into a temple. But the problem which they were able to see when they were doing it at Mahabalipuram was that these rocks were starting to crack after a point. These rocks were starting to crack after a point. And by cracking at that point of time, what we see is that two of these ruts were left incomplete itself. And here the Pallavas realize that going down the rock cut monolithic structures, there is a basic problem, and that problem is they will identify the limitations of monolithic rock structures. And what happens further is that is why in the third stage In the third stage, Narasimhavarman II, Rajsimha, he develops early Dravida structures in the form of the shore temple at Mahabalipuram. And very simply, shore temple at Mahabalipuram is considered an example of Dravida style developing. And by the time we come to Nandivarman, he's a late Pallava ruler. Dravida style was fully established. Now, this is where you see Narasimhan one Mamala, Pancharats, Mahabalipuram, and you have Rajsimha group, Shore Temple and Kailashna Temple at Kanchipuram. These temples will then give way to the Mukteshwar Temple and the Mantangeshwar Temple in the Gudimalan area. But the Shore Temple will basically establish the basic features of Dravida, which will be taken forward by the Cholas and taken to the highest point thereafter. So this brings us to the $1,000,000 question. What are the features of Dravida style temples? Can I discuss this? If you understand the evolution, somebody asks you the evolution, you will be able to tell them how it starts from Mahendravarman to Narasimhavarman to Narasimhavarman and Narasimhavarman II. Evolution is clear, everybody. Pallava style is part of Dravida style temple. Again, fundamentally wrong question. Pallava style is the origin of Dravida. Dravida comes out of Pallava. Now, so we are discussing basic features of Dravida style temples. And the answer to this question is in this image. After completion of all temples, can you provide Venn diagram of all temples? How many temples are there in India? And what should the Venn diagram actually represent? Okay. 3 types. What is subpart school? Okay. First feature, Gopuram or gateway, water tank, boundary wall. Always, these three will always be present. Thereafter, Ardhamandap, Mandapa. Now here the interesting things change. This should be called what? This should be called what? What should be the term which should be used? This should be called शिखर. अरे मेधी कहाँ से ले आए? शिखर, शिखर. It should be called शिखर, but it is called Vimana. Basically, the term शिखर is not used. It is used as Viman. And ironically, the topmost. What does शिखर literally mean? What does शिखर literally mean? Top, peak. So the topmost point is called शिखर. And further, the last remains the same, which is Garbhagriha. So the main differentiation is here Viman, Shikhara, and Gopuram. These are three terms which you need to know now because of the fact that these are specific to Dravida style. So you have water tank, you have boundary wall, you have Gopuram gateway. Just to show this to you, this is a Gopuram. This is a Gopuram. You can see here the boundary wall and here you have the Vimana, you have the Shikhara, you have the Gopuram, you have the boundary wall. So here the structure actually changes. Here the structure actually changes. There are 8 points on the screen. Anybody has any issue in this? Because they need to add 3 more additional points. No issues? Viman is called Shikhar in North India. Viman is just the tower. That's it. Okay. Now, the 9th point, Panchayatan style exists in South India, but, or rather, but there is no clusterization of Vimanas. Meaning, if there will be subsidiary shrines, they will never be together. They'll never be together. There's no clusterization. They're not brought together. Now the god should be under A, B, or C. The main god will be under A, B, or C. Now, in South India, there's a reverse logic. Main deity is under the smallest Vimana, which could be B. Can anybody tell me the reason why? You're writing B. Tell me the reason why. Center, don't know, lack of money. Some of you already given the answer, Kalampal and all. Due to center, because it's a center. No, it is not center. See, it is because it is the oldest part of the temple. Oldest part of the temple, it will generally be early stages, and later the temple will gain a lot of money, so it will start to make bigger and bigger structures. And that is why if you ever go to, for example, if you've ever been to Tirupati, if you've been to Padmanabhaswamy, if you've been to any South Indian temple which is old, you will see that you will never be able to figure out where the main deity is, because the Viman of the main deity will never actually, you will not never be able to see it. The larger Vimans are basically subsidiary shrines. The oldest part will always be the smallest, because when the temple starts, it has a small structure. So very simply, here is the exact opposite to the North Indian idea. Why are South Indian temples large as compared to North? There is no large and small, but Devdana grants would make these temples extremely powerful, very big, and they used to cover a lot of areas. Because they are more than just temples, they are power centers. Are we clear about 9th point? Then I discuss the 10th, which is the last point with regards to this. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Very good. The 10th point, the imagery and the style of decoration is not welcoming but fierce and made to instill fear in the mind of the people. And this is where there's again a differentiation, that temples with their proper dwarpals, with their proper what we call as gopurams, you will see dwarpals. These are called dwarpal, wherein they are gatekeepers. They are gatekeepers. And because temples have a water tank, they have even artisans, it has a proper economy, it has a proper, and even they are getting money from the king. They are extremely powerful structures which have even sometimes more money than some of the states itself. That is why, for example, Padmanabhaswamy temple has more gold than even the RBI. And more than that, if you look at the Tirumala Tirupati Devasthanam (TTD), the whole city of Tirupati is run by a trust. So TTD, or be it the Padmanabhaswamy or old temple, Jagannath temple, for example, Somnath, very big temples. Specifically in South India, there you will see a very major differentiation, wherein you have the imagery more fear instilling. This is not a welcoming institution. It is an institution which tries to tell you that you're going into an important space. And herein lies the major differentiation between Nagara and Dravida. Nagara style, Dravida is enclosed within a compound wall. It has an elaborate gateway called Gopuram. The word Vimana is used and the top is called Shikhar. The north, there are multiple Shikhars, but there is no clusterization in South India. The most sacred temples, which is the oldest part or the oldest Garbhagriha, will be under the smallest tower because it is the oldest part of the temple itself. And thereafter, the entrance of North Indian temples would have Mithuns, goddesses, Ganga, Yamuna. But in South, you will have Dwarpals, gatekeepers to instill fear. Water tank is very common, and subsidiary shrines are either incorporated into the main tower or have separate shrines. They are never, there's no clusterization, that is for sure. That is, there is no clusterization in that regard. In that regard. Clear, everybody? Because then I talk about Vesara, and we can then make one table for basic understanding. Yes? Okay. Now, in between all of this, the highest point, the mandap is there, already marked in it. Highest point of, or the climax of Dravida style is under the Cholas, and the Gongaikonda Cholapuram temple, and either the Brihadeshwara temple or Brihadeshwara temple at Thanjavur are one of the most interesting and monumental South Indian temples. Here you can see that the Mandapa and the Vimana and the Shikhara are at a different level altogether. And they had a very simple point. If the Viman is big, they will make the temple also equally big, which is called horizontal and vertical elaboration. The bigger the Viman, the bigger the what we call as uh, mandap section itself, to make it bigger and more impressive. Now, in between all of this, in the Deccan sector, we see the rise of a new style, Deccan or Central India or Deccan India. It would be Northern Karnataka and forwards. We have a new style which is called Vesara. Vesara is Nagara plus Dravida. Is Nagara plus Dravida. Nagara structures it takes is from Nagara. Decoration it takes from Dravida. That's why it's called a hybrid style. It's called a hybrid style, wherein certain elements are taken from Nagara, certain elements are taken from Dravida. Now, the Viman and Mandap are both are there, open pathways are there, and very intricate carvings are there. There are three rulers or rules, dynasties which followed Vesara quite a lot, which is Chalukyas of Badami, which we discussed previously, Rashtrakutas, and the most celebrated and now recognized under UNESCO, which we'll discuss in the current affairs portion of our discussion, which is the Hoysala dynasty, Hoysaleshwara temple, Chennakeshwara temple, Somnathapura temple. These are what we discuss separately in our UNESCO World Heritage discussion and the current affairs discussion. But as I told you, Nagara style influence is on the curvilinear Shikhar, and Dravida style temple is the intricate carving. A very good example of this is this. This is the Kailash Natha temple at Ellora. It is the temple of Lord Shiva, and this has been carved out of a whole mountain itself. And very simply, you can see it has a Gopuram like structure also, but it is not very far away from it. It has a curvy linear shikhar, but its design is looking like a Dravida temple. But this is where rock cut architecture reached its highest point, because they basically carved out of a whole what we call as a mountain. They made a whole temple. But it is believed that the highest point of temple architecture in Vesara was reached by Hoysaleshwara art. Hoysaleshwara art is the art which is used by the Hoysala dynasty, and they are known for the Hoysaleshwara temple at Helibed, the Vijayanarayan temple in Belur. And this is very, very important, because here we see a certain interesting concept. First is this called zigzag design. And if you look at the Ram temple or the Ram Mandir which has been developed at Ayodhya, you will automatically see the parallels here. If you look at the whole structure of the Ram temple, you will realize that the zigzag design, which is Vesara style, has been used. Further, it has also been made on a small platform which is called here Jagati. And in that way, we see another parallel in the Ram temple. We'll have this discussion on 18 January, where we will discuss the architectural features of this temple. It is purely a concept of Vesara style. But in Vesara, first we have zigzag design, we have Jagati, and we also have the standard black basaltic rock. And further, a very interesting thing is there, that in Vesara, specifically Hoysala art, and that is why it's called UNESCO. It has what is called a star plan. Star plan. It's called stellate plan. Stellate plan. And stellate plan is that you will have 5 shrines in the 5 directions. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. They will be in a star shape. So together, these are considered very, very important features of Vesara. We'll come back to this issue when we'll discuss current affairs, because that makes more sense when I'm discussing UNESCO with you. Thereafter, the last discussion we need to have, and then we take a break, is the Vijayanagara style. When we talk about the Vijayanagara style, which is a jump from straight away from the post-Gupta to the Delhi Sultanate period, we see that all elements which we had seen till this point are coming together. But there is one word which is used, and you should automatically know it is Vijayanagara. See, highly ornated walls, okay. Gopuram in all 4 directions, very good. Monolithic rock pillars, that is also okay. But as soon as you get to know about the word Kalyan Mandap, you should know that it is Vijayanagara style. Kalyan Mandap is basically having a specific mandap in which every year the deity, which is the god and the goddess, Shiva, Parvati, Lord Vishnu, and Lakshmi, are married ceremonially every year. So this is something which Vijayanagara style is known for, which is Kalyan Mandap. In all Vijayanagara style temples, you will find a mandap specifically known for that or given for that, which is the Kalyan Mandap, or the divine marriage mandap in that regard. Now, if you go to Bengal at the same point of time, just before the coming up of Delhi Sultanate, we had the Pallavas. We had the Pallavas. No, not the Pallavas, the Palas. And the Palas are Buddhists. And because they are Buddhists, this image has become very iconic, because this was used by the G20 team for a lot of pictures where Prime Minister Modi met with a lot of dignitaries. This is Nalanda University. Now, if you look at Nalanda University bricks, and this brick, which is the Sompura Mahavihar in Bangladesh, you will realize that these bricks are very similar to what are used in stupas. So what the Palas did, and what the Palas are known for, is basically to keep Buddhist architecture alive in their temples. This one is a little bit lighter because this is made a little bit later. This is much older and was burnt. That is why the Nalanda Shri being burnt, it has taken the black tinge. The simple point is that the palas from Udantapuri to for example, Nalanda to Vikramshila, all or Jagdala were developed by the palas, and all these temples kept the basic Buddhist architecture alive with vihara also. With vihara also and a very distinct style which was picked up by the successors of the Palas, the Senas, is this. This is called the Bengali roof. This is called the Bengali roof. The Bengali roof is basically the concept of how a sloping roof is taken. We have seen this in Dakshineshwari temple in Bangladesh today, made by the Senas itself. A curved roof which looks like a bamboo hut with clay terracotta bricks, which is common to Buddhism, to tall curvilinear shikhars. These are called curvilinear shikhars, and to very lustrous finish. You can see very pure, very bright finish is something which the Senas also add and take forward. Now, before we go to the next thematic, which is the medieval and modern after the break, I want to summarize. I want to summarize. I have not done regional temples with you because that breaks the flow. I will do it with you separately in the end in miscellaneous topics. What I'm trying to argue, there are two Dakshineshwari temples. One is in Kolkata, one is in Bangladesh. Now, very simply, first, second. Since the starting of this module, you have discussed Mauryan architecture, which is Mauryan pillar, stupa, caves. Mauryan pillar, stupa, caves. We have done post-Mauryan caves. Then we done temple, Nagara, Dravida, Vesara, Pala, Sena. All these areas you can get a standard question with regards to Mauryan pillar, stupa cave, Mauryan post-Mauryan caves, which is that Venn diagram which we did, and Nagara style basic, Dravida style basic, Vesara style basic points, and Pala and Sena style basic points. If all of this is clear, we've reached till 1206. After that, I have to now cover Delhi Sultanate and Lodi and Mughal architecture. For that, I'll give you a break. When we come back from the break, we take it forward. Yes? In one of the photos you showed Vimana with had a Vimana top is called Shikhar in South India. In North India, it's called Shikhar and Amlaka Kalash. Basic features of Visara is decoration from south, structures from north, and Hoysaleshwara Jagati zigzag design. Okay, questions from... You can get pre and mains, both type of questions. Who built Nalanda? Kumar Gupta. Which type of questions from this? You can get both prelims and mains. From this, more prelims. From this, mains. 1206 is basically, again, you don't remember. What is 1206? Establishment of Delhi Sultanate. There's no Kalash in Dravidas, no. Can we take a break? Okay. No, Sachin, firstly, if you put your mind to it, you can make a very beautiful structure. Aliens did not come and make anything. Stop watching Z5 and his Discovery and History channel. Please stop doing that. Simple point. Which is that people can also make it. Then every structure which you see, Is then you'll say Burj Khalifa after 1 lakh years that it was also made by aliens. We made it only. So don't worry. Everything which is made by people. I'll give you practice questions. Let me finish architecture as a whole first. A simple question would be differentiate between Dravida and Vesara style, Dravida and Nagara style. What are the basic features of a Nagara temple? What are the basic features of a Dravida temple? Standard questions can be coming. Do you need to read any book? After this, if you want, you can revise from Nitin Singhani. Okay. I realized question related to temple in Mach 1 was easy. Hoysala. Yeah, Hoysala, very standard thing. Okay. And that was also a current affairs question. We'll talk about Hoysaleshwara art again. We'll come back at what? 6:50ish, 55ish, and we'll take the story forward. Welcome back. Who am I? Anupali. Charan, I didn't say it. I told you I'll be back by 7. 6:55, 7. Okay. Can we start again? Yes. Anupali, what is the issue? Okay. Divya, you don't have to go into that much detail. If you want to discuss, if you want to do Mahanavi Dibba, you can do it, but that is optional level. Purna, don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. You email me about it, I'll get it sorted. Tank is a specific structure, just a lake type. Could be anything. A lake could be enclosed. Okay. Now we transition to the second module in a way of art and culture. These first two are the biggest in that regard. Thereafter, it eases off. And this thematic, once it's over, you go to the story of what we call as paintings. Then we go to sculpture. Now, when we talk about medieval architecture, we are referring to the period between 1206 to 1757, to be very precise, 1707, which is the death of Aurangzeb. And medieval architecture is given a specific terminology. And that specific terminology is called Indo-Islamic architecture. Indo-Islamic architecture. Now, what do you mean by Indo-Islamic architecture? See, there is a major issue with regards to how we perceive medieval architecture, how we see medieval monuments, and mostly the categorization is that it is called Islamic, but that terminology is wrong. It is not Islamic because it has multiple elements of what we call as indigenous elements and aspects, which in turn mean that Indo-Islamic architecture is something which in a way exhibits both Islamic elements and indigenous elements. The characterization as Islamic is incorrect, and these monuments in themselves are an integral part of Indian architecture, history, and culture. Because remember that the ideas, artisans, designs were all Indian or indigenous to the subcontinent. To the subcontinent. And therefore, Indo-Islamic architecture is something which represents a confluence or an intersection of two cultures to create a unique blend. A unique blend. This should be totally clear in your mind because some of you have either myths or notions or ideas which have been picked up from popular imagination. So, if you, for example, call the Humayun's tomb or Taj Mahal or anything or the Qutub Minar as something as an othering, as a representation of someone else's culture, you are basically falling into the trap of the British communalistic argument and you have basically lost the plot already. Everything which is there in this period is a confluence of two very dominant cultures coming together and forming a hybrid, unique blend of architecture and art. Are we clear about this? Because then I move one step forward. Yes? Okay. Agree, disagree? For the UPSC examination, you have to agree. Now, when we talk about Indo-Islamic, there are basically three major phases. Delhi Sultanate, Lodhis, Mughals. Each having their separate contribution and each can be a subject of question. Blend, B-L-E-N-D, blend. Each can be a subject of question, meaning what is the contribution of Delhi Sultans, contribution of Lodhis, contribution of Mughal emperors. This is a standard question which can come. So let's start with Delhi Sultanate. Let's start with Delhi Sultanate. Now, Delhi Sultanate is divided into five phases, or four phases. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4. Phase 1 is called the reuse phase. It is Qutbuddin Aibak. Qutbuddin Aibak. And Qutbuddin Aibak if one says that construction of temple is superior than any other construction, what should be the answer in the interview? Firstly, if you're talking about this in the interview, you've already lost the plot. First thing. I don't know how from yourself and your hobbies you reach temple construction. First thing. So I hope that you don't take your interview that route only. It would be extremely unfortunate that you're talking about temple construction in your own interview because they don't have to recruit a temple, they have to recruit you. Second thing is all cultures, all architectures, everything is equally good, and all religions are equal according to the constitution, and all constructions are equally good. So the answer is equal, equally good. Superior, inferior is a subjective argument. It is the subjectivity of that person. In the eyes of an administrator, everything is equal. Okay, now reuse phase. Sir, why was Mughals invaded in Delhi only at first for their rule? Harsh, write your question properly. I don't know what you are writing. I have no idea. Why was Mughals invaded in Delhi only at first for their rule? They did not invade in Delhi. They invaded Agra. Agra was the center of power under Ibrahim Lodi. But you rephrase your question. Kutubuddin Aibak. He has two major contributions here. One is called Kuwait Ul Islam Mosque in Delhi, Maharoli, and second is called अढ़ाई दिन का झोपड़ा अढ़ाई दिन का झोपड़ा in Ajmer. Thereafter, it is called reuse phase because this is a temple which was used as a mosque, and this is a Jain monastery which was again used as a mosque. Monastery. Jain monastery used as a mosque. So if you look at the Kuwait Ul Islam Mosque, I have images to show you, don't worry. Or अढ़ाई दिन का झोपड़ा, अढ़ाई दिन का, it's not a झोपड़ा, it's actually a very big structure. अढ़ाई दिन का झोपड़ा in Ajmer. The internal structure which you see there is actually a Jain monastery, and this is a temple which had gone out of use, which was reconstructed and rebuilt by Kutubuddin Aibak in Mehroli. In this courtyard, you have the iron pillar, and the iron pillar therefore gave an idea to Kutubuddin Aibak later also. But Kuwaitul Islam Mosque, as soon as you see it, you will automatically realize that it is a temple because of the pillars and the carvings itself. But this phase, there is no major innovation. There's no innovation. Phase one is just about existing buildings being used, reused, so as to get makeshift ideas. That is the basic point. अढ़ाई दिन का झोपड़ा, it is believed that he stayed here whilst moving towards the battle of Terrain, or on the battle of Terrain. The story is that they stayed here for 2.5 days. But again, don't go by it. It is what it says. अढ़ाई दिन का झोपड़ा, 2.5 days, and basically it is believed that they stopped here. Gori and Kutubuddin Aibak stopped here before they went forward. Okay, now. Phase one, there's no architectural merit. There's no architectural merit. Rather, it is phase two in which things start to become interesting. Phase two is when the Delhi Sultans, through their experts, brought in from Central Asia, introduce or use the following for the first time. And the elements which were introduced are true arch, true dome, limestone mortar, and arabesque. Now I have to discuss with you accurate. I have to discuss accurate structures. I have to discuss with you all of these 4 or other 5 elements. Now, this was in display in Qutub Minar, in the Qutub complex. Now, written like this also, accurate, same thing. It is not that accurate, not accurate structures. Accurate, it's an architectural term. Now, what is the first and second? See, domes and arches were known in India, but the correct concept, measurement, or way was not known. Meaning, we used to make domes, but they were very they're called shallow domes. Meaning, they are very shallow. They're not very big. And when we used to make an arch, we basically used to add a beam here, then used to have columns, and then we used to stick 2 pieces of stone so as to create an illusion that it is an arch. This is one structure, but technically it isn't. Because the arch is still based on the idea of beam and lintel, or rather beam of column. See, when you have a column and when you have a beam or roof over it, this is called a trebeted structure. Trebeted structures are basically the ones which are based on the idea of a beam and column. So a dome and an arch are quite different. A true dome and true arch are not like this. Now again, if you ask me what is an arch, I cannot believe that you don't know what is an arch or you have not seen an arch. But this is an arch. And this is a dome. This is the Istanbul, what is called the iconic Turkish dome. This is dome inside. This is dome outside. Now again, I cannot believe and cannot understand that you've not seen it. For example, I do not believe that you haven't seen it. You have seen it for sure. You don't know. So dome and arch. Dome is like gumbad. Gumbad is the Urdu word for dome. So what the Delhi Sultans actually do? Sir, not seen Istanbul. मतलब you have never seen a dome in India. नहीं, इस्तांबुल जाके देखोगे. Dome and arches are standard things which are made in Central Asia, but not here. The basic point is, that we knew that what is a dome, but we never knew how to make it elaborate. We never knew how to make it elaborate. And therefore, what the Delhi Sultans did was, or Delhi Sultanate did was, the correct scientific methodology of the correct scientific methodology of the arch and dome were introduced. Basically, trabeted means that it is based on column and beam. Again, you would have seen it, for example, in temples. All temples are mostly made in trabeted structures. Now, basically, what they did was that they were able to produce what are called true arches. Arches are basically doorways or gateways. And they were also able to produce true domes. And when you know how to make a proper dome, you basically are now capable of making what is called accurate structures. Accurate structures, accurate structures, whatever it may be, these are structures devoid of columns, vertical columns, is called an arcuate structure. Or an arcuate structure. Now, think of it like this. If there was, for example, a mandap, you had columns, right? But have you ever seen a structure which has only four columns or these pillars on each side? Will this structure survive? No, because this area, the middle area, there's no load bearing. So you would have to add more pillars, and you would have to add pillars here also. A very good example of this is this. Is this roof going to survive without these pillars? No, it won't. But this is called a trabeted structure. But if you incorporate arch and dome, you do not need columns, and therefore what we see is now they are able to make structures such as this, based on arches, and domes. And from this point, you can look at the top. The dome basically represents the sky. So if you look at the sky, it seems like a dome is over you. So the concept is domes are representing the sky itself. It's called the pleasing skyline. Now, if a person is standing here, can you see the person standing here without any obstruction? Yes, yes. Because there is no column, so there's no obstruction. There's no obstruction. This is called an arcuate structure. See, open halls which are needed for madrasas, or for example in masjids where congregation happens, if you have too many pillars, it takes up space. So by adding a dome and arches, what you do is you can have an open hall with no pillars itself. And this architectural technique was so important that till today, most of the big halls are made like this only. Any hall which you see where there is no pillar in between, the same type of design would have been used. The same type of design would have been used. The technology would have been used. Now, I told you that Delhi Sultans gave us true arch, true dome, and arcuate structures. If these 3 points are clear, then I'll tell you why is limestone mortar important, what is arabesque. Can we discuss phase 2? Yes? Okay. Now, to have such a type of building, and specifically this type of a dome, for example, this part of the dome, does it have the risk of falling or not? It has the highest risk of falling, lowest risk of falling. It has the highest risk because it is a freestanding in between structure, and if it is not supported properly, it can fall, which basically the roof can fall. Are true domes closed? All domes are closed. I said it represents the sky. If you don't have the dome, then what's the point of having the it's a closed structure. Again, talking like you've never seen a dome, but no problem. The point is, in order to keep these elements of construction together, what do you need? What do you need? You need a good glue, cement. You need cement. What keeps all things together is like a cement. And here you have what is called the limestone mortar. Mortar means glue made out of chuna and gypsum together, limestone. This is lightweight and strong at the same point of time. And without limestone mortar, arches and domes are not possible only. Because if the limestone mortar is not strong enough, these elements will start to fall. Not all domes are made out of limestone. Ashay, think before you write. I'm saying limestone mortar, which is limestone glue. In this period, yes. What is the difference between true dome and accurate dome? Again, confusing yourself. It's called a true dome because if the scientific measurements of the dome is correct, It's called a true dome. Dome wall, you can also make a dome, but you will not make a proper dome. Accurate is a structure, is a type of structure. Accurate structures mostly do not have pillars. Tripartite structures have a pillar. So I don't know where you are making these manghanant questions, which when I'm not saying these things only. Accurate is a structure. Dome is a device. It's an architectural device. So again, I don't get it, but I am still answering your question. Simple point is that in order to have dome and what we call as arches, accurate structures, you need to use a mortar. It specifically should not be limestone, but it is limestone which they introduce, which becomes a staple and a standard thing. So please be very clear that Delhi Sultanate rulers, in that sense, are the ones who introduced true arch, true dome. Previously, we did not know the scientific method of making it. It represents a pleading skyline, and by having arches and domes, you can have halls which do not have pillars. Again, this does not mean that all tripartite structures went away. It does not mean that all tripartite structures which are based on the slab, beam, and column, it means both started to be constructed together. And the Turkish sultans were very important in introducing a limestone light scale mortar, which was used in Central Asia quite a lot, not used in India. So in phase two, there are four major innovations which have come through. Here it was reuse phase. We are discussing phase two, wherein true arch, true dome, limestone mortar, and accurate structures have come through. Now, if this makes sense, I will tell you the fourth point, which is what is the fourth innovation of this period. Fourth. Yes. Fourth, fifth, whatever it is. I want everybody's yes. It's not rocket science. Stop acting like you've never seen these things. If you haven't, you have Google. Waste your time in these good things rather than wasting on random things. Simple, straightforward point. True arch, true dome, limestone mortar, and Arabic and accurate structures, arcuate structures have become common, and they are the innovations of this period because of the way they introduce what they introduce. Now, now, the fifth introduction or the fifth edition in that regard is a new decorative technique based on Hindu symbols, geometric design, plus Quranic verses and calligraphy, which is called arabesque. Now, see, there's an issue, and the issue is in Islam, representing human and animal and even living forms is considered un-Islamic. Is considered un-Islamic. Basically, the idea is that what God has made, you don't have the right to make it. So what God has made, you cannot represent it as always. So in art and architecture, no Islamic building has human figures in their decoration. And as it is, idol worship is not allowed. Is not allowed. Is this true for Hinduism? Is this true for Hinduism? It isn't. That is why if you go to any, even Hinduism, Buddhism or Jainism, if except for Hinayanic Buddhism, you go to any temples or of these ideas, you will find human women, Mithun, the Yaksha, Yakshi. You have different types of representation. Different types of representation. So now the architects of Delhi Sultanate are stuck. The architects are stuck. They're stuck because they cannot make human figurines. And if they can't make human figurines, how should they decorate their buildings? Because they can't make plain buildings. So what they do is that they say, okay, if we can't represent and they want to decorate, the Delhi Sultanate rulers look at the temples and they love the decoration. They want to decorate. So they come up with the idea that we can do one thing, geometrical patterns can be used. And they said that we can do one more thing, which is that we can use calligraphy to write the Quranic verses in a very stylistic manner. That can also be decorative. But the master stroke, why we call this Indo-Islamic architecture, the master stroke is that the Delhi Sultans called the ulemas. And they said that, can I represent humans? They said, no, you cannot represent humans. It is un-Islamic. So he said that basically, if anything is un-Islamic, then it can be used. Reverse psychology. If anything is un-Islamic, it can be used. So the ulema said yes. So the Delhi Sultan said that if I use Hindu symbols, for example, lotus, inverted lotus, the swastika, and even basic Hindu symbolism, then is it un-Islamic? He said yes. So it means that I can use it. So they found a loophole. They said, okay, we can't represent anything which is Islamic. Therefore, every Hindu symbol is un-Islamic or non-Muslim. And therefore, we can use Hindu symbols. The ulema is basically caught up in his own answer. And that is why arabesque, which develops as a confluence of using Quranic verses. You can see here, Quranic verses written in calligraphy, using geometric designs, but any design which was available in a temple was therefore available to the sultans. And this is where Delhi Sultanate rulers embraced the indigenous design culture and Hinduistic imagery. It isn't confusing. If it is confusing, then Delhi Sultan succeeded. It's very simple. You cannot represent anything which is Islamic. So you can represent anything which is un-Islamic. Hinduism is not Islam. Therefore, Hinduistic symbols are un-Islamic. Therefore, can be used. It's a syllogism. Please explain in simple words. Cannot understand the process. Simple words. ठीक है. I said to you, Quranic verses are Islamic, but they don't represent a human form, right? Verses of the Quran are not going to come out of the Quran, right? It's not a living thing. Okay. but you wrote animals, humans are un-Islamic. Sun to lo. That is the master stroke, right? They will never use animals, they never use animals, and they never use humans. It's about designs. I tell you, now pay attention. If you're asking me, then have the patience to listen to me. I'm trying to bring it down, so try to understand. Think of it like this. I said to you that you cannot eat a burger. You cannot eat a burger. So you said, okay, sir, I cannot eat a burger. Then you said that a pizza is not a burger. A pizza is not a burger. If pizza is not a burger, then can you eat pizza? Yes. Now remove the burger and put Islam, and remove the pizza and Hinduism. If it is not Islamic, it can be eaten, it can be pushed. Same way, if it is Hinduistic, it is un-Islamic. And if it is un-Islamic, it can be used. अभी भी नहीं समझ आया ना? पता है मुझे 110% नहीं समझ आया. Did not make sense. Yes? Be honest. Because it will become even more difficult. It's a very easy concept. नहीं आया. कोई बात नहीं. Now you have brought me to the stage of now showing you Venn diagrams. Basically, see, and this is the last time I do it because it is not that a bigger point, and I after a point will start to stop caring that if you understand or don't understand. See, these are the symbols which are un-Islamic. These are the symbols which they can make. Now, Hinduism comes here in A or in B? Because Hinduism is un-Islamic, they therefore can make it. I'll show it to a different way. See, cannot make, can make, cannot make, can make Hinduism. Simple. Because it is un-Islamic, it can be made. You can't understand it. Think of dual lemma. It's not difficult. It's just a compromise. It's a very interesting compromise. Who said that they can't make Islamic figures? In Islam, I understand very simple point. In Islam, you cannot make anything which Allah made. You don't have the haysiyat, you don't have the auqat to make it yourself. If God made something, you can't make it yourself. Standard basic ideology can't make anything which is human or what we call as animal, any living form. It is not even any living form. If you have ever been to any of these monuments, you will realize that the flowers also have the wrong color. They will show different flowers with different colors. They do it because they are making flowers which don't exist. Anything, all reality which is there is basically made by Allah, made by God. Therefore, they cannot make anything which God made. So what they do is that they find a loophole. This can only apply within Islam. So within Islam, if everything is not allowed, then they said that if it is Hinduistic, then it is not Islam. And therefore, Hindu symbols can be used. End of story. Either it is the communalism which is pushed into you, which is not making you understand this, or it is just basic logic which is not working in you. I wasted more time than what is needed here. Simple point of the matter is there is a decorative technique which makes these buildings more and more Indian than actually Islamic. That is why, more than, if you go to the Qutub Minar, does the Qutub Minar seem to, in the decoration, seem to be an Islamic building? The problem is you've not seen an Islamic building itself. If you go to, for example, the mosques in Saudi Arabia, in UAE, in Qatar, you will see very plain white board, white images, white buildings, blue buildings. However, when you come to India, even mosques are looking like decorated, proper, what we call as structures. I will show that to you under Akbar. You could not make out if it is a mosque or not. This is because that is why all monuments in India are unique to India. That is why they are called Indo-Islamic architecture. It's not called Islamic architecture. Islamic architecture is something where you mostly do not decorate. Delhi Sultanate rulers wanted to decorate. So therefore they found a way, and that was to integrate Hinduistic symbols, saying that we are not transgressing within Islam because it is not part of Islam itself. That is the only thing which I'm trying to argue, and you have made a fuss out of it. So I now presume that you understand what I'm trying to say here. So, sorry to say this, before slide need a change, animals are Islamic. Kahan likha hai yaar? I said representing. Read it properly, Lakshmi. आंखें खोलना है. Okay. Now I really don't care. Now I've gone into that zone that I'm now not going to waste everybody's time. Now, when we talk about decoration, if it says arabesque in the examination, just remember it is Delhi Sultanate. In the sphere of decoration, the Turkish sultans cannot represent human and animal figures in the buildings. Eschewed means not allowed. Instead, they use geometrical and floral designs, combining them with panels of inscriptions of the Quranic verses. Thus, the Arabic script itself became a work of art. Then you will say, how are they representing the Quran? Because it's a script. It is a text. They are not representing what God has made. It is a man-made script. The combination of these decorative devices are called arabesque, and it freely borrowed from Hindu motifs such as bell motif, swastika, lotus. Thus, like the Indians, the Turkish were very, very intensely fond of decoration. They used very light red sandstone. They embraced red sandstone, and yellow and marble was used to basically make a blend of different structures. Now, very simply, I showed you this slide. Phase 2 additions were true arch, true dome, limestone mortar, arabesque, and accurate structures. Does this make sense? Because then I will show you the examples of this. Does this make sense? What now these 5 words mean? Okay. Now, if you look at the Qutub complex basically is considered the blend of the old and the new. So, in Qutub complex, if you've ever been to it, you have one, the Kuwaitul Islam Mosque. This is the Chandragupta II Vikramaditya iron pillar. Then you have the Qutub Minar. Then you have the Alai Darwaza. Then you have Iltutmish's, this is called Alai Minar. Alai Minar was an attempt by Alauddin Khilji to make a minar bigger than Qutub Minar, started but never finished. And then you have Alai, or this is called Iltutmish's tomb. Iltutmish tomb. Now, this is called Alai Darwaza. Now, these basically represent stage 2 of the Qutub of the Delhi Sultanate generally. And the first main structure in this is what was seen as an equivalent to the pillar made by Chandragupta to Vikramaditya is that Qutub Minar was conceptualized, is conceptualized as the idea of a minar celebrating the Delhi Sultanate establishment. Now, 7.71.4 meters, made without any modern construction tools, and started by Aibak and finished by Iltutmish. Now, the Qutub Minar has two very important, very important features. One, that if you stand in at the below, if you stand at this point and you look up, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there are 4 balconies. Now, if you have a balcony, it should obstruct your vision. But no, it is made in such a way that from this point you can see till this point. This is the first thing. Second thing is that the whole minar is not plain. It is actually ribbed. Ribbed means that there are basically columns like this. This is called ribbing. And on these ribs, there is proper profuse decoration. Now, it is believed that the foundation was Kutubuddin Aibak. But tell me one thing: 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Are all these parts identical to each other? No. Here, 4 and 5 are different. And the reason for that is, Qutub Minar foundation was then completely completed by Iltutmish. But what happens is that on the upper two, there was a lightning strike, which destroyed this. And Firoz Shah Tughlaq made this or rebuilt this section. And basically, he made it with marble. Till here, it is red sandstone plus yellow sandstone. Plus yellow sandstone. A marble decoration is very difficult. Doing on sandstone is easier. There is a little bit of decoration, but marble decoration, you can't use the same type of concept. That is why he used a panel to differentiate the colors. Marble decoration only very well was done under Jahangir and forward, which is called Peter Dury, which I'll tell you. The simple point is that Qutub Minar in a way is the testimony to the fact that our own indigenous artisans were becoming more and more what we call as skilled. But we believe that the highest point of decorative nakashi or intricate work came in Iltutmish's tomb. Now, Iltutmish tomb has a very interesting feature, and the feature is, you can see the arch here, which is this. There is a dome which got destroyed, so it is open in a way. But the interesting feature here is every inch of the tomb is decorated. And if you look at these different motives, motive means symbols. This is the famous inverted lotus, which is used in temples quite a lot. This is called inverted lotus or lotus. And if you look at this is the part where the Quranic verses have been written, you can see here. And certain sections, for example, you look at this. Don't these symbolisms look similar? It is in Qutub complex, Mehrauli, Delhi. Don't these look similar to what is done in temples? If you look at the way they have made these pillars, don't they look like temple construction, what we call as temple construction symbolism. This is where the master stroke is. No ulema can actually say that this is not allowed, because the artisan straight away said that I used to do it in a temple. So when I'm doing it in a temple, it is not part of Islam. So basically, I'm not doing something which transgresses Islam itself. It is just a decorative technique which is already un-Islamic. So therefore, if you understand what I'm trying to argue here is, it is our artisans, it is indigenous artisans which make Delhi sultans more Delhi sultans than Islamic sultans. Basically, Delhi Sultanate sultans embraced the idea that the more we add Hinduistic symbolism, the better it is, because that way we can decorate, and that is why these structures are unique to India itself. Are unique to India itself. You will never find such type of construction anywhere else. Anywhere else. And it is believed, and this is not phase 2, this is still phase 2. It is believed that under Alauddin Khilji, the highest point of phase 2 will be reached, wherein he will build a whole city called Siri, which does not survive today except for a mosque and a basic wall around it. But it is him who developed the Alai Darwaza. The Alai Darwaza is considered that the arch and dome were made with proper scientific measurement. Proper scientific measurement. Wherein, if you look at this, this is, have you ever seen this anywhere other than the Alai Darwaza? Where have you seen this? This is actually called Rajasthani Jali work, which will later become Rajasthani Jali work. This type of designing is very common in Rajasthan. And therefore, Alai Darwaza, this dome itself, is considered a true dome. A dome which was built on scientific lines. Therefore, we believe that they reached a point where our artisans had already learned all Turkish techniques. All Turkish techniques. And you can see how big the arches were becoming. This picture is quite iconic because Kuwaitul Islam Mosque, which is phase 1, the iron pillar, which is the Chandragupta II Vikramaditya pillar, and the phase 2, all converge in one. All converge in one, wherein it shows that how our artisans were becoming more and more driven, more and more oriented in going forward in a better manner itself. So our discussion of phase 2 ends with understanding that you don't have to remember the examples, end in understanding that in phase 2 there are multiple innovations, and this is perfectly fine. If this makes sense, I give you a breather, though it is already 8. I give you a breather, and last 25 minutes I want your attention for phase 3 and phase 4. Is it okay? Clear? Okay, because I want your attention in the last 25 minutes equally. It's been a while, so I'm giving you a breather. I'm leaving you here. Think of it like what we have taught till this point. Right? 5 minutes, burst, 25 minutes, phase 3, phase 4, we finish. Right? Okay. We come back at 8:05 exactly. Summary of that or whatever I've discussed is in front of you on this slide. Okay, now phase 3 of this discussion is under the Tughlaqs. Is under the Tughlaqs. And when we talk about the Tughlaqs, between Ghiyasuddin and Muhammad bin, it is phase 3, and phase 4 is Firoz Shah Tughlaq, and is considered a declining phase. And this is why reading architecture gives you a lot of interesting insights. What you get to know is that in this phase 3, there is the marble dome, new concepts. There is called batter, which is sloping walls. And there's also called the concept of beam and lintel, which is introduced. But by the time we come to Firoz Shah Tughlaq, buildings start to reflect the declining economic situation. And so much so that Firoz Shah Tughlaq declining phase, what we see is that he will reuse building material, and he will start to produce non-decorated, very dull buildings. This can be seen vis-a-vis a contrasting image of Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq's tomb, which has the iconic marble dome. And further, if you see, these walls are not straight. These walls are not straight. These are called sloping walls. Sloping walls, slanted walls. And this is in architectural sense called batter. They made 3 cities, Tughlaqabad, Jahanpana, Firozabad, Adilabad. And the highest point is the marble dome, sloping walls, which is batter. But they also innovated on something which is called beam and lintel structure. Meaning, if you want to make a small opening in a building, you add lintels, which you can see here. There's a major beam here, but he wanted to make a small opening here. So he added a small slab here, which is called lintel. Lintel is basically added in walls so as to create an opening. But what we see further is that by the time we come to beam, lintel, and strength, when we come to Firoz Shah Tughlaq, by the time come to Muhammad bin Tughlaq, is there a contrasting difference? This is Muhammad bin Tughlaq's tomb. Can you see a certain differentiation? How from this they have gone to this, and the further you go, the more worse the structures start to become. And the reason is that in Muhammad bin Tughlaq's tomb, in Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq's tomb, they use the very beautiful red sandstone. But by the time you come to Muhammad bin Tughlaq, they did not have the money to buy red sandstone. And when they don't have the money to buy red sandstone, they use white sandstone and even basic plastering. And on white sandstone, you can't decorate. Still, they add the inverted lotuses, which will become a very common thing. The fact of the matter is, architecture is representative of change. And therefore, by the time we come to when we come to Firoz Shah Tughlaq, you have even worse buildings. Ugly buildings, very, very dark, brownish, reused buildings, which with no barter, only recycling, and Lotus will still survive. But Firoz Shah Kotla looks like a Khandahar, looks like a tomb already while it was a city. So if you go by the 4 phases of Delhi Sultanate, the starting point is phase 1, then you come to phase 2, then you go to phase 3 where you reach the highest point, and then phase 4 shows you decline. This is how architecture is an indication or a window to politics of what we call as basic economic and political stability. Here we are reusing. Here again we are reusing structures. Here you have true arch, true dome, limestone mortar, and what the concept of arabesque. Here you have barter, you have beam lintel, and you have marble dome. And through this phase, you have declining phase. Buildings are unimpressive. So very simply, now I obviously don't want to start Lodi because Lodi is very intricately connected to Mughals. We'll discuss Mughal architecture and paintings. We will start tomorrow. I just want to now summarize what we've done generally. We've understood since the beginning of this class Nagara, Dravida, Vesara, and then the contribution of the Indo-Islamic architecture. In a way, this is a continuity story. We started with just basic temples to reach the highest point of temples under the Cholas. And once we reach that path to the highest, when it comes to tribated structures, we reach to the highest point. Indian culture and Indian architecture had to go somewhere. And where it went was that it went towards the new accurate phase, wherein with the rise of the Delhi Sultanate, 2 devices which were previously known in India were but not properly used, like gunpowder, like how Babur used it later. True arch, true domes, arabesque becomes a very standard thing with limestone mortar that allows the Delhi Sultanate to create the Qutub complex, the Siri, the Firoz Shah Kotla, to whole Shri Fort sector itself, Adilabad, Tughlaqabad, Firozabad, all these things. And thereafter, we go into that declining phase where we see that all this will go down. Then will come the Lodhis, who will take it again one step further, and the Mughals will take it to the highest point. And the Taj Mahal is the Taj Mahal not because it was made by Shah Jahan, because all these techniques will come together in one, which is the Taj Mahal. Taj Mahal is seen as the culmination of this phase, and thereafter we will get what we call as modern architecture or the colonial architecture of the British. Till the British don't come, everything is part of your own story. Everything is part of Indian culture. Everything is created by Indian artisans. So stop going into propaganda and designating things which are yours as someone else's. This is the only point I want to emphasize as much as possible, which is that there is a propaganda, there's a certain understanding, there's a certain thing which is being pushed, wherein certain buildings are called the others and are constructed. All buildings were constructed by us only. It is an integral part of our own structure, integral part of our own culture. Clear? But you tell artisans came from Central Asia. Architects came from Central Asia. How many artisans will bring from Central Asia? Architects transferred that technology to artisans, mistris, Rajmistris. Phase 4 is Tughlaqs only. Tughlaqs, Lodhis are not in phase 4. Phase 1 is reusing one. Yes, reusing structures which were already there. Standard of phase 4 was lower than phase 1. No, obviously not. But it's not like that. See, I've taught you in phases because that is easier to remember. The question would be, what is the contribution of Delhi Sultans to Indian architecture? Phase 2 and phase 3 points have to go into it. Are we clear? True arch generally measures a proper measurement. Proper measurement is true arch, true dome. I don't care what is that measurement. Okay, now let me give you some practice questions and we can break for today. Discuss the salient features of Nagara and Dravida architecture. 250 words. Second, discuss the contribution of Delhi Sultans to the architectural history of India. 250 words. Simple questions, but lengthy questions. Prelims, you will get questions, obviously. I will do the prelims previous year questions with you. But mains questions are more out of this area. Nowadays, prelims questions are becoming more and more current affairs oriented. Okay, so with this, we stop today and we'll pick it up from here tomorrow and we'll take it towards painting, sculpture. Once sculpture and painting is over, we will basically be able to cover everything what we have to cover for mains oriented plus prelims oriented, and then we move away from it. And I think this week is fine. 17th is our last class. 20th would be the doubt session. If needed, on the 20th doubt session day, if needed, I'll take, if we are lagging, for example, by the time we reach there, I'll take some extra 1-2 hours. We'll see that. Okay, thank you. Take care and bye-bye.